Today we're doing a 3D areola tattoo that is going to be for our Fitzpatrick 3 and 4 skin tones. This is going to be using world famous pigment warm mink, cool mink, and dark tan as our contrasting colors for our areola, our nipple, and our nipple seam detail. Now for this areola, I'm going to be using a combination of a 12-13 curved magnum shader for the areola and a 12-1 RL and an 8-1 RL for the lining of the detail for the nipple and the white. Now, I usually use on client skin tone a 12-3 RL, but I'm switching it up today working on latex. This is our real skin latex, and it's one of my favorites because it actually allows you to see the detail that we're creating, starting by outlining the nipple detail and using the rest of the pigment in the cartridge just to shade a little bit towards the bottom of the nipple to begin creating that shadow. If you're not confident whip shading, you can also use stippling in order to create the little dots that you would see to create the texture in the center of the nipple. You can see me doing that there using a pointillism or stippling method, but it's totally whatever skill level and comfort level that you have. And again, I'm just using that ink to clean out the cartridge before I move on to creating the shape of the areola. When I begin shading the areola, which is the darker skin around the nipple emerging from the chest or breast tissue, I'm going to use my 13-15 curved magnum to begin shading. It's going to leave a really soft, light, airy appearance and allow you to control the amount of color saturation that you build so that you ensure that you don't just fill a solid round circle on the client's skin. You want to actually have it have some light, some dark, some different depths and textures, so it actually begins to look like real chest tissue. I always want to exaggerate the shadow more towards the bottom of the nipple, because if the nipple is truly three-dimensional, it is going to block out the light beneath it, and it's going to be in a shadow where you're going to have more light at the top of the nipple and areola, because that's where the light in the room is usually coming from, the ceiling. So there's going to be more highlight or more light in the nipple and areola towards the top, building more shadow, depth, and dimension towards the bottom of the nipple to make it look like it's including out three-dimensional. You'll also see that I added a few different areas of light and dark in the areola, again to add that texture and make it look like the skin is actually moving on the tissue. Once I'm done shading the areola, I switch back to either my single or my 3-round liner needle, and I'm going to either use whip shading or pointillism, whatever your comfort level is, to again begin developing that color towards the bottom of the nipple. This is where I'm using that warm pink color. It's a little bit more of a chocolatey brown, whereas the other colors are a little bit more of a cool neutral brown. I want to start building that color towards the bottom of the nipple because, again, if that tissue is truly three-dimensional, it's going to be obstructing the light beneath it. And I want to have more light towards the top of the nipple, but I want to make sure that I'm filling in that color saturation evenly to block out the yellowish texture of the latex or the natural skin tone of the client, because you want to begin building that pigment to make it, again, look like this is nipple skin. It's not just the skin that is around the tissue. This is truly now the 3D realistic anatomical skin that we are tattooing on the surface of that skin. Once I've created the shading for the center of the nipple, I'm going to begin creating the creases on the outside of the areola skin. Not every client is going to have these constriction lines or creases along the areola, but many do. These lines are going to, again, act to appear like texture, so that when the client looks like they are cold, those lines are going to retract the skin. When the client is excited, it's going to allow the skin to push out. This to me is what truly gives the appearance of 3D realism rather than just a sticker or stamp on the skin that's all a solid circle, one color. Once you've outlined where you want those creases to be, you can go back and use that second color to whip shade and add some more depth and dimension around those constriction lines. Nobody's skin is one solid shade, so this also helps to add a little bit more depth and a little bit more 3D realism to those creases by making it look like they truly are in shadow or in highlight. It's important to remember where your light source is coming from, usually from the top center or from the top side, either right or left, depending on which nipple or areola you're working. So make sure as you are building your color, you never forget where your light source is coming from, and remember to have a little bit of highlight so that you're never creating a skin tone that is too dark. Because once you start developing color and everything gets too dark, it's really difficult to then go back and add that highlight to make it appear like everything is 3D realistic. So you really have to be thinking about that play on light, shadow, color, highlight as you are building the texture now, because all of the white highlight comes at the very end, all of the dark shadow is built in the beginning. This is something that most people ask me what I'm creating. What are these little dots, these lumps and bumps that you're adding to the skin? These are areola or Montgomery glands. Not every client has these little lumps and bumps, these sebaceous oil glands on the surface of the areola, but many clients do, and so I want to just use that pointillism or stippling method to find the gaps and the areas in the areola shading where it already looks like it's a little bit lighter, and where I can create a little U-shaped cup of shadow by taking either my lightest areola color or my second darker areola color and just tapping that pigment in about 5 to 10 little second spurts, so that I control the amount of saturation and I don't make those shadows too dark. Again, I just want to make these little U-shaped cups that appear to be this little shadow where I'm going to add that white highlight in the center and create that areola or Montgomery gland. Once I feel like I've got the majority of the detail complete, I'm going to go back with my darkest color, my dark tan, and I'm going to just exaggerate the shadow towards the bottom of the nipple. I've added some shadow to the bottom already using my shader needle by exaggerating that depth of color, but now I really need to go in and I need to carve out that line either towards the bottom or side of the nipple, where I'm truly showing that this is the darkest part, this is the crease where the nipple ends, because that again creates the look that the nipple is protruding out, because that's where all the light is being blocked, and it is showing that that nipple is sticking up and out off this flat 2D latex surface, or off your client's flat 2D chest after mastectomy or top surgery when the skin or anatomical tissue has been removed. Another thing I like to do is just use a very tight, small whip shading to go in with that dark tan color and exaggerate the shadow that we've already added with our 13 curved magnum needle. Again, I'm just trying to add a little bit more depth, because if that nipple is sticking out and living in the shadow, I want there to be a true color gradient from top to bottom, where it makes it appear like the lightest browns are at the top, working down towards the bottom and lightening up again as you get to the bottom of that nipple. I also go in with that dark tan color and just exaggerate some of my creases, exaggerate some of my areola and Montgomery glands, remembering again that nobody's skin tone is all one solid color. So by creating these different plays on light and dark, adding different depth in different places, that's what truly makes it look more realistic. The final step to any 3D realism tattoo is going to be adding white. I'm going to switch to a completely brand new needle, that way none of my colors get mixed and muddied. And I'm going to use pure white, or a more of a taupe camo colored pigment for our darker melanated skins. And I'm going to use that pointillism technique again to go tap, tap, tap in about 5 to 10 second spurts, usually completely at a 90-degree angle. You don't want your pigment to migrate in this position. And you want to just fill those little cups that we created earlier and have that be the white highlight that makes those areola and Montgomery glands look like they're sticking up and off the skin and creating that texture rather than just that flat surface of the areola skin. After you've highlighted all your areola glands, you can go back in and highlight those creases. Usually the highlight is going to be at the top and the shadow is going to be at the bottom, but remember your light source. It's going to be different depending on where you chose your light and shadow to come from. This is our final completed 3D areola. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much, and follow along, like, and subscribe so that you can check out more 3D areola paramedical tattoo videos.